Hi everyone, this is Bhavesh and we are back with another session of Alumni of the Week in this series. And today we have Muzammil Iqbal with us. Hey, hi Muzammil.
Hey, Varsh, how are you?
Yeah, great. And hope you're also doing great. So awesome. So today we have Muzammil. Presently, he's a product manager at sync.com and he has been in the industry for a while now. It's like more than half a decade he has been a product manager. So today we look forward to a lot of insights that you'll get to know with Muzammil. So quickly starting from right now at present, Muzammil, how your day looks like? What are you up to these days?
Hey, usually, what my schedule looks like is that 50% or more than 60% of the time I'm like packed with meetings. Either those are sprint-related meetings, or this could be stakeholder-related meetings, or we are searching out for your vendors if we're implementing new solutions. So usually, my days goes around from 8 to 10 hours on a regular basis. But I would easily say 50 to 60% goes on meetings. Rest of the time, I try to focus on refining the backlog, sometimes looking at our refining our product roadmaps. Recently, yesterday, we had our quarterly meetings. So we were deciding what features to build in, what features to roll in based on the previous user interviews we have had. So we were just trying to organize everything and getting ready for the next quarter. So last few weeks have been pretty hectic. But overall, if you see 50 to 60% of the day goes in meetings, I get some time looking at the backlog, looking at the roadmaps, and also we try to do user interviews in bi-weekly cadence. But sometimes it gets really hectic and we have to reschedule. But this is roughly what it looks like. We hardly get time to eat lunch and everything, but this is how it is, man. If it's not busy, you're not moving in the right direction. So
Okay.
being efficient is the key here.
Okay, all right. So now, before taking it any further, right, we'd like to know more about Muzammil, like how you started. Right now, presently, for all our viewers, you are in Canada, right? And
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, so like how this whole journey began, like from if we can, quickly scratch the surface. Yeah.
Exactly. So I was not aware there is a thing like that, a product manager, or even you say old school. If you go 10 years back or 15 years back, there was nothing like a concept of a product manager. What existed was project managers. What existed was your business analysts. As we have came into the future, this role has become more focused and aligned, and companies understood that okay, you need to be more focused towards customers. That's how you gain traction. So prior to that, let's go back to 2011. I was helping a cousin of mine. He was working with some US clients and was struggling to maintain that communication. So he thought that let's bring my brother in so he found me that I'm better at communication. So that's how it all started. I started taking requirements from them and basically presenting in a format that is understandable to stakeholders, but also understandable to my brother as well. So I kind of liked doing that, like formulating documents, clarifying requirements, because that's how it is. That's how it was back to 2010 and 2011. Fast forward, I got an opportunity to come to Canada. I moved to Canada, did my master's. So I kind of, at the back of my mind, subconsciously, I was always thinking like, yeah, this is something I could see myself doing for the rest of my life. So I started looking for roles, and that's how I landed in a business analyst role. I was in a waterfall setup setting for a couple of years. And then I came to know about agile product roles, how they are hyper focused on users, trying to find solutions to the problems users are facing, and more customer focused, right? So that kind of got me excited. And that's how I landed a product owner role. It was very focused, very, we would say, backlog focused thing. The product owner is a very backlog focused thing because you have your managers coming in with the features, talking to customers and stuff like that. So that's in that company I had an interaction with product manager, and that's how I got excited about this particular field. So I started asking around him questions, and I think I can help him with that can sharpen my product manager abilities. So I worked in that company for a year. After that, I again went to. Then I think then my next role again was a product owner, but I felt it had a more product owner management responsibilities as well. And then after working for 2 or 3 years, I actually landed a product manager role actual. basically where I was talking to customers, where I was making PRDs, where I was refining more tasks, I was conducting market research, I was conducting competitor research, but I felt there is something lacking in this role. And then yeah, I got this. Found HelloPM through LinkedIn, and I thought like it's time to sharpen my skills. And it's been looking back since then. It's been an amazing journey so far. So I'm working with Saint, and yeah, loving it so far.
Okay, okay, awesome. So, like quickly, before moving ahead with your journey with Hello PM, a quick
Yep.
zoom into like how you have been working into B2B space for a while. So usually
Yep.
people don't get the idea of product management into B2B space. Mostly they are working in D2C space, right? Since it's mostly
Exactly.
consumer focus. So how
Yep.
it's different from a D2C space? Is it somewhat similar, or somehow lenses are changed? So yeah,
Uh,
your take us.
so I think uh, I can help this as because my most recent role is B2C. I'm more customer focused. But prior to this, you have this set of customers you regularly have to deal with. So you sometimes you are kind of you have this idea what kind of stakeholder you are dealing with. Here in B2C customers, you can literally build hundreds of personas and you will still feel short of it. But in B2B space, at least an advantage you have is that you somehow recognize who your stakeholders are. Who are you dealing with? What kind of things they're looking with? At this stage, you can have some sort of stakeholder analysis to analyze your stakeholders. So I think that's a differentiation, and you always have this fixed set of features you're building for your customers. It could be a custom features, it could be just new features that coming to the overall product. So I feel in B2B space, you somewhat still can identify your stakeholders. In B2C, you cannot do that. It's more challenging to work in B2C. But B2B, you can be hyper focused on some of your stakeholders, because I remember a few years back I was working for a B2B space, and we used to white label a lot of our products. So basically these B2B customers, they just stamp their label on top of our product and they used to sell it. So what I found that uh, when you deal with these two sets of stakeholders in B2B, they can be very demanding. B2C, somehow you can still negate those voices sometimes. You can basically, okay, I have thousands of customers, but these 500 customers or these 200 customers are asking for a specific thing. You go ahead, you do user interviews, conduct your researches, and then you go ahead and build the feature. But in B2C is what happens when you have a very demanding customers, you have to make sure this gets done. Otherwise, it affects your businesses. So all in both spaces, ultimately it boils down to what you're dealing with, what kind of person you're dealing with, what kind of stakeholders you're dealing with. So that has been my experience, and particularly there are minor things, minor details like managing releases. I felt in B2C space, you are in a very high pressure situation to release some things because you have released something in the past, it's not working, or maybe it's broken. But in B2B, I felt you get a more leverage, you get more leeway with some of these customers. So just these minor things. But yeah, pretty much that is what my take on it.
Okay, okay. And just to quickly summarize it, any one specific thing that you felt really helped you out, even though moving from B2B to B2C space. I mean, that was sort of similar.
See, the thing is, if you talk to any product manager or any person who's working on the product space, they would say, if you ask them what's the number one skill they should have, and everybody would say communication.
Hmm.
And sometimes when you're listening to these podcasts, when you're listening to, or when you're reading any posts on LinkedIn and anywhere, you sometimes get this notion that is it overrated? Is communication overrated? Because literally it's being so generic, everybody's saying that, but that's the gist of it. It has to be communication because your role is a bridge between your stakeholders and between your customers and
Yeah,
also to your product. So never, if you have to just work on one skill that can help you be a better product manager, it has to be a communication. It has to be a balancing priorities, because that's what, if you look at a product manager, that's what the heart of the role is. It's
yeah,
communication. So I
yeah.
think what I brought from my previous role was like I always had to deal with demanding customers.
Hmm.
So I brought that communication skills with me to this role. I think this has helped me immensely.
Awesome, awesome. So, all right, now since we branched back to our initial question, right?
Yeah,
You, as you mentioned, like you found Hello PM, and then kick-started your journey with Hello PM. So, how
yeah.
was your experience with Hello PM while you were there around the community?
Man, I asked Ankit to change that time, but he didn't, man. I used to wake up at 2:30 a.m. in the night to attend calls. But it was all worth it. It was all worth it because the things I was expecting with the cohorts and with the classes, I think it went beyond that, to be honest. There are few things I was never aware of, like how to do a proper customer research, how to do a proper market research, how to do a proper competitor research. There were a lot of things that were taught to me during the course, like things like jobs to be done, which I immensely use in my current day to day, because whenever I'm working on something, I always try to look from that lens. Is this thing getting done? Is this thing getting the job done for the customer? And that has put me, or that has vastly improved my product sense skills, product thinking skills. So overall, I felt it steered me or course corrected me to the right path, because I felt I still lacked a lot of skills despite working in the product space, because I felt I was more backlog focused. But after joining the cohort, I felt I was more customer focused. I was more product focused, and I was looking at things that makes the most impact rather than just doing the things for the sake of doing it. So my overall experience with HelloPM was absolutely amazing. Waking up at 2:30 a.m. was absolutely worth it. And taking all those classes, grasping the knowledge, doing assignments,
Hmm.
everything kind of like helped me. And I feel more confident now. Prior to these roles, I was still very much introvert. I was hesitant to take initiatives, but I felt after taking this code, and this is a true story, after taking this code, I feel a certain sense of confidence in me. Okay, that I can tackle this challenge, I can take this initiative, and I can make it a success. So I think that has been a change that what I have personally seen after joining LP.
After completing the cohort, what was the
Mhm.
one thing, or what is that one thing that still you have with you, like from the cohort sessions until date?
Uh, I mean, see, ultimately, it's if I have to take two things, right?
Hmm.
One is I felt I got more product focus, as I mentioned earlier in my call, that I developed product thinking, meaning uh, now previously before joining cohort, a product was simply a product for me. I was just using it. But I think after joining cohort, I felt everything I use or do, or any tool or anything that helps me, I look at from a product standpoint now. Who are its users? What are their pain points? What do they go every day to use this product? What challenges uh, they face day to day that this product is helping them solve? So I felt that instilled a certain sense of product sense and product thinking in me after joining the cohort. That's number one thing. And the number two thing I would say, confidence, man. That um, it's uh, it's hard to describe. Before joining the cohort and after joining the cohort, I myself saw like a 360 change in me, that I could go into a room of product managers now. I could go into a room of even like the higher ups or your stakeholders or your management. And I felt I will be able to answer most of the things they're asking, at least from a very customer focused standpoint, or from a very product focused standpoint. So I think those are the two things, man: product sense thinking and your confidence.
Confidence. Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome. So moving forward, we talked about your journey, then your experience with Hello PM. So now
yeah,
let's quickly get some insights from you, which can really help students who are aspiring to be product managers, or people who are very
yeah,
new to this whole industry, right?
yeah.
So just to start with, what are the essential things that you will mention for any aspiring product manager, be it people who are starting from scratch or people who are transitioning from any other profile?
Okay. Aspiring. Okay. People who are trying to be in this space. And yeah, as I said, like even if it's ballooned out of proportions, and you literally hear everyone say this, but number one thing has to be communication. You cannot beat around that. Second, would be to have some sort of product thinking, because if you can develop that lens early in your career, that you start looking everything from a product lens. If you could do a tear down, just a mental tear down in your head of a product, that will help you a lot. And uh, and the number three thing is related to interviews, actually, because a lot of candidates, they go into an interview, they give interviews, and somehow they don't land on the job. It happens. Just don't break your heart. The third thing would be to never lose hope, because you might feel there is a lot of competition around you. There are a lot of people that are competing with you. All you have to think is you just need one job. You just need one role. Just have to land in, and once you are in, you'll be able to do all the things you're being aspiring for. So then third thing would be, if you're doing interviews, never lose hope. Always be positive. It's an easy thing to say, hard thing to implement, but unless you push for it, you won't see results. That's how it is.
Cool, cool. And since you mentioned about the interviews, like
Yep.
since you have been in a product role across various companies, so any
Mhm.
specific question that you remember that comes around every time? Like these are a couple of questions that lens up every time, be it any role
Uh,
you take up, and which are essential eventually.
Exactly. So, there has been one striking thing with me in my interviews. When I look at or search for product manager interview questions, you find questions that are related to very customer, that are related to metrics. But all I found throughout my career, the number of interviews I've had, most of them have been very behavioral focused, very Amazon style interviews. Like, what did you do to land in such position, or what steps you take to make sure this is going in the right direction, or what are the things you use as a success metric for this particular feature you developed. So there have been like thousands of questions I've dealt in my life, and some of them, they are just as plain as, like, if you knew your product from the past in and out, I think a lot of it will help you in your behavioral questions, because I felt sometimes I myself did not have a end-to-end idea of my own product, and I go into these interviews and they ask these questions and I'm blank, and I felt that, okay, I don't know my product in and out. So that's the number one thing you have to do when you're going or landing into an interviews. If you have worked in the past, even as a software dev or any role, you have to make sure you know your product in and out. Few questions is basically, this was the situation, what steps you took. I think
Yeah.
that has been the style. What I think, they usually ask this question a lot about mistakes. You might feel, okay, this is in every interview list, but I think 100% of my interviews, I would say, this question has been asked to me. Like, what was the biggest mistake you made in your last role in your career, and what steps you took that mistake is not repeated again? Because an interviewer, I myself take interviews, and I always ask this question because it helps you gauge what this candidate has been up to. Like, has he taken any measures, or have they taken any measures to course correct what mistakes they've done in the past and how they're faring now? So I think this is number one question for me, which has been asked in all across interviews. And then you have your matrix questions, other questions that they come here and there. But I would say this has been the highlight of all the questions, I would say.
Okay, okay, and that's a really pretty good insight coming from you, as you already suggested. You also take up the interviews, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. Moving forward with similar line of questions. So mostly people have this question: what are the things that they can do to make their resume stand out, or somehow they can portray themselves to stand out in an interview, or maybe to get through the filtration process. So if you can throw some light upon same.
See, as I mentioned earlier in my call, that a product manager role is all about impact. How much impact you're creating, how much value you are bringing to the company. So when you're working, let's say if you have no experience in the past, like you are a complete beginner, you might have to pick out things from your past, from your school life or from your college life to bring certain areas where you have made impact. And if you have worked in the past in sales, marketing, engineering, doesn't matter. You always put up things. You always look for keywords when you're writing a resume that highlight your impact. You do not say things like coordinated or things like that. You basically say, I basically took this initiative and I took these steps and it landed me such a result. If you could map out the areas from your past experience that have created the most impact for the company, because that's what ultimately businesses are looking for. How much value you're going to give them. We can hire you, but what value are you bringing to the table? What skills are you bringing? Everybody is bringing skills.
Yeah.
What's making you stand out? So I think that's one thing you have to make sure you always put impact points in your in the bullet points in your resume that highlight your strengths. So if you could do that, I would say 90% of the time it will help you. And also, it's not far-fetched, but you have to mention some sort of metric. If you could like prepare, okay, I created this feature, or basically I developed as a, you can say, the software dev, like a lot of developers go into this role. I basically developed that feature that helped the company bring this much of revenue, that helped this much with the conversions rate. You still have to use product lingo in some
Yeah.
way or the other because you're applying for a product role. So you have to make sure you put impact points, and you also make sure whatever you're putting has some sort of product language in it. If you could do that, creates a positive impression, because a recruiter myself, I hardly look at resumes for 30 seconds, and that's not what you say. That's not a lie. That's a true fact. When
Okay.
somebody says they're looking at your resume for 10 seconds and 20 seconds, actually that is. You just look for higher points, the impact points, and what makes you stand out in those roles. That's all. And that's how we skim the resumes and move forward.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. I mean, I guess this would be really clear for all the folks seeing this video that
Yeah,
they need to stand out, outcome based from things they need to mention. Okay,
exactly.
yeah, as moving forward, since you already talked about the skills and the resume and all the parts, so what are the like couple of top three mistakes that you usually found at present all the aspiring product managers are doing, or usually you tend to see product managers do? So yeah.
Uh, I would say not being prepared enough.
Okay.
Uh, because this is what I've done in the past, because I was aspiring product manager back then. And I felt going into certain things, like even if interviews or certain meetings, even when you are presenting your idea to the audience by means your stakeholders and your users, I felt you're not being prepared enough. So to overcome this, like you might feel going into these meetings, you're being asked a lot of questions which you thought would never be asked to you. So I started creating this hypothetical scenarios for me, that I'm in a room full of 50 people doing this presentation. And also I'm one of the person who is listening to this. What kind of questions I could ask uh, out of the presentation I'm doing, right? Because as a product manager, you have to present a lot in the meeting. So you have to have that confidence going into these meetings that, uh, yeah, I can handle this. So being prepared enough, imagining yourself in a scenario that there are 50 people sitting and you're doing a presentation, just imagine even the wildest of questions they can ask and get ready for it. Because when you're ready, when you feel ready, you go into these meetings, that would ultimately help your confidence. And when you hear words or phrases, people praising you for what you have done, how it basically eliminated the problem in their head. So basically, that particularly boosts your confidence yourself. And you could go back to the table and start working more hard, start putting more hours, start focusing more on your customers and your product. So I would say being more prepared enough, and not being prepared enough is the one mistake you could do. Second thing is not being customer driven. You might say, okay, yeah, that's very common knowledge with product managers in the product space, but you are not the power user of the product. The customer is actually the power user of the product. I can give you an example of mine, right? We deal with customers who use terabytes of data stored in their cloud. We basically are a cloud focused company, but we don't. We have just few GBs of data we use for testing, some testing, right? So we don't face the similar challenges our customer is facing. So that's why you have to talk to your customers on a regular cadence, that you could understand how they're using the product, what kind of challenges they are facing. Because recently we have faced a lot of syncing challenges. People are not able to sync their data to the cloud. We were not able to face the similar challenges on our end. And the one of the bottleneck was because we are not the power users. We do not have petabytes or terabytes of data. So you always have to be customer focused. And not being customer focused is the second mistake you could do when you are in a role. Third thing I would say, maintaining a healthy balance, giving enough freedom to your development team. Because you might be just pinging your development team every 10-15 minutes, asking them stupid questions. Uh, that's why we have Scrum daily calls to get the basically what they have been up to. So I think you have to give enough freedom to your development team so that they trust you and they build those features for you. And how you do that is basically give them enough freedom to build what they're doing, but also take updates and stuff like that. So basically, you have to have a very strong relationship with the development team in order to fail in this particular role.
Okay, okay. That's quite summarizes all the things that you mentioned, right? The mistakes
Yeah,
people could do. All right. So
yeah,
since like moving towards the end of the session, I would
yeah,
like to have last couple of questions. So
yeah.
one is while getting into this space, mostly people are quite skeptical, right? Coming from different verticals or maybe not being able to know the tech very much. So, is it
Yeah.
really a hurdle somewhere out in the market as a product manager, or how it is?
It is not a hurdle. It is definitely not a hurdle, but it helps, right? If you're coming from a vertical which is very different from tech space, let's say you're in sales, you're in marketing, your customer space, in some capacity or the other, you might have interacted with tech folks, you might have interacted with product managers. That kind of got you excited for this role. That's why you're being an aspiring product manager. That's why you went into this space. So I think as soon as you get this will to enter this world, I mean, learning about these skills won't hurt you. I mean, if you don't have enough past experience, you just highlight it. Like you collaborated with marketing team or basically collaborated with engineering team in such capacity, right? So you understand the keywords. So first thing you have to do, it is definitely not a hurdle, but you have to make sure you know your keywords, how you're talking, because I said like the essence of a product manager role is communication. And how will you communicate if you don't know the language? So basically, once you enter into the space, make sure you are learning the tech space, uh, even if minor things like APIs, SQLs, and I felt HelloPM covered a lot of these things in depth as well. You have those things to learn back to. If even if you feel you're struggling in current role, just watch the videos. That's what I do. I regularly go back and I see for videos from Expanel,
Okay.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
you have a resource available at your disposal. Use it. It's not a hurdle, but learn it, because in the end, Hello PM will give you all the tools, will give you all the knowledge in the world, but it's up to you how you're gonna apply it. You
Yeah.
have your mentors available. You just have to make sure you're using them.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. So yeah, you already mentioned like it was my next question since you already talked about tools also, right? I mean the importance
Exactly.
of the tool because usually as a initial product managers, students mostly tend to rely on the tools more rather than scaling up other other ways. What's your take on it? Like, what is the importance of the tools and yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it is highly overrated, man. Frameworks,
yeah,
tools, everything is overrated. I mean, people say this, but it is actually overrated because the only few tools which will help you, that the one number one thing is your thinking, man. you understand something. That is what is more important. They could People could use mixed panel, mixed people could use Pendo or Amplitude for measuring their analytics, and they could use XY tools for managing the backlog. But that won't matter. You can learn a tool in a day or two, but you cannot learn a thinking or a way to do certain things in few days. It
Yeah,
takes time. It comes with experience. So make sure you use these tools when it's needed, and you're not always reliant on them. But
yeah,
use your confidence, use your knowledge, use your skills, that you could pivot into any tools you want. That's not critical. You could use There are thousands of tools in the market, man. You
yeah,
cannot learn every one of them, and that's not going to help you with your product journey. What's going to help you with your product journey is how you create impact for the business, and how you use that impact to particularly boost your confidence.
yeah, yeah. That totally makes sense. I mean, the end part that you suggested. There are so many tools. I mean, if you want, you can learn it within a day or two. So that's all. The matter of day or two. So it's really hard
Exactly,
to work on your articulation, communication, and then thinking process. That's what really matters.
exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so, all right. I mean, so just to quickly wrap up this session, I have one last question with you. So, if Muzammil is to be starting his journey today as a product manager, what are the
Yeah.
things that you would do, like from scratch? Like, how would you approach towards it?
I think it's kind of this will be like a summary of the overall interview. Uh, First thing, what I'll do differently. First thing I'm gonna do is I know my product in and out, and that's why companies they give you that freedom for first 3 months or 2 months just to relax, learn the product, learn who are the stakeholders, learn who are the users, how we develop the product, and how we manage the whole cycle. That's your whole journey. So you might just feel rushed. Okay, yeah, I have to create some sort of results. I have to give some sort of value to the company in these 30 days. Yes, it doesn't have to be a major win for you. It could be small minor wins. You could release small minor features that creates a value for the company, but also helps you show something that, yeah, I've done something in these 3 months. So number one thing I would do is focus on my product so that I know it in and out. That's the number one thing I would do. Second thing I would do is basically managing my time, because as a product manager, you will get so busy with so many things that you will find difficult to separate the signal from the noise. So what you have to do is every day when you're starting your day, you have to have a to-do list. It's not far-fetched. You have to have some sort of like, just look at top three things you would like to achieve at the end of the day. It's not just putting out messages on Slack or emailing people. Yes, that's a critical part of the job, but you have to remember your role here is to maximize the value of the product, is to maximize the impact you are creating with the company. So just look at top three things you would like to achieve at the end of the day. We use Agile to manage our backlogs. Use Agile in your life.
Right.
At the end
Right.
of 2 weeks, at the end of the 2 weeks, how you see yourself moving the needle for the company or moving the needle for the product. So that's why I say, like, I have my quarter plan set from here, man. Like what I'm gonna be doing for this next quarter. I know these days I'm busy in meetings. These days I'm working on product tasks. These days I'm focused on customer interviews. So planning is the key here. Like I felt I did not plan well enough early in my career. So you have to make sure you're prepared and you're planned enough. Plan your day, plan your weeks, plan your months. You will feel at the end of the day that you are actually creating impact, you are actually creating value for the product, and you're creating value for the company. That's the second thing. Managing time is really important, and like separating the signal from the noise. And the third thing is just based on time is prioritization.
Okay.
You have to make sure if you're working on 10 tasks on a day, you prioritize based on what gives you the most value out of it. And folks who are listening, just look for a framework called LNO. It's by Shreyas Doshi. Most of you might be aware, but it's just three things. Your leverage, not so important, and there's I can't remember the O part, but basically the LNO framework helps you categorize your tasks based on what gives you most leverage and what is not so important, and is basically what is not so important. And O is basically is just an overhead for you. So categorize your task in this way. I would definitely use this framework early in my career. Just looking at the tasks, okay, this task gives me the most leverage in this month. This task gives me the low most leverage in this week. So I try to do that because I know at the end of the week, I'll check my week back and I reflect, but okay, yeah, this is the number one thing that I've achieved. So your prioritization is actually very critical.
Okay, I mean that was really insightful. Lastly, you mentioned about prioritization because in the whole
Mm.
conversation, it sort of summarizes, right? If we are
Yeah,
doing so many tasks, so much on the plate, and yeah,
yeah,
planning and everything boils down to the prioritization. Yeah, that totally
prioritization,
makes
absolutely.
sense. Yeah, that totally makes sense. And yeah, with this, we have reached towards the end of the session. So, with this thing, I would like to thank you so much, Muzammil, joining us here on our platform and sharing your
Right.
insights around your role and your journey, and also how you have been hiring other product managers. Hope this also helps all the viewers who are seeing this.